citizen really impact the partiality of the court. In conclusion, my client was clueless about the prohibited substance and was treated brutally due to his Australian indigenous identity. However, in this democratic country, even every citizen should be treated in a fair and equal way, regardless of his race, gender, and skin color. As a matter of fact, my client had no idea what was inside the suitcase that belonged to Allison. He just did Allison a favor. He shouldn't be convicted just because of his kindness and the professionality of Ms. Probe and Ms. Larry. Your Honor, please find my client, Mr. Tipawuti, not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Crown, you may call your first witness. I can't hear. No, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I call Ms. Van Broek. Please state your name and your occupation.
My name is Selma Probe. I have been a customs officer for 13 years. I have worked at Adelaide International Airport with my narcotics sniffer dog partner, Fan, for 3 years.
What happened when you were on duty at Adelaide International Airport on 13th of August, 2019?
I was checking the luggage that was taken down from the AA1313 airline. At that time, Fan had shown immense interest in one of the luggage. According to my professional experience working with Fan for 3 years, I knew that it meant there were prohibited substances in the luggage.
What did you do after the suitcase with prohibited substances was discovered?
I took my narcotics sniffer dog Fan to the arrival lounge, and I instructed Fan to identify who the owner of the suspected suitcase was.
How did the narcotics sniffer dog Fan identify Mr. Tipawuti as the sole owner of the suspected suitcase?
When Mr. Tipawuti passed by my narcotics sniffer dog Fan and me, Fan raised his head, cocked his back, and began to shuffle forwards. This was an identifying signal indicating Mr. Tipawuti is the owner of the suspected suitcase. Fan gave no identifying signal when other passengers passed by. That is the reason why we conferred Mr. Tipawuti is the sole owner of the suspected suitcase.
How were you certain that the narcotics sniffer dog Fan make a correct identification?
My narcotics sniffer dog Fan was well rested and well prepared for duty that day. Fan was in a great condition when he identified the owner of the suspected suitcase as Mr. Tipawuti.
What action did you take after the narcotics sniffer dog Fan identified Mr. Tipawuti as the sole owner of the suspected suitcase?
I went to see who would pick up the suspected suitcase. Soon, I saw with my own eyes Mr. Tipawuti picked up the suspected suitcase. Later, he joined a line of people waiting for clearance. Then, I approached Mr. Tipawuti and asked him about the suspected suitcase that he was carrying.
What happened when you asked Mr. Tipawuti to check the suitcase he was carrying?
I approached and asked Mr. Tipawuti if I could check his suitcase, but he did not answer my question directly. He just replied he had nothing to declare. However, according to the Customs Act 1901, Section 186AA, Subsection 6A, my narcotics sniffer dog Fan's identification, and my professional experience, I escorted Mr. Tipawuti down to the search area to check the suspected suitcase that he was carrying.
What did you find in the suspected suitcase that Mr. Tipawuti was possessing?
I found 5 yellow envelopes containing white powder, which is the prohibited substances.
What did you do after discovering the prohibited substances in defendant's suitcase?
I called Ms. Leary to Adelaide International Airport to investigate this case. After Ms. Leary arrived, I told her what had happened and handed her 5 yellow envelopes.
No further question. Thank you, Your Honor.
You may cross-examine defense.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Berg, how many years have you been a dog handler?
I'm fence
Hello?
handler for 3 years, and I
Oh,
have
No,
a
I'm
dog
asking you how
handler.
many years have you been a dog handler?
I have been a dog handler for 13 years.
What's the sniffer dog's name?
My sniffer dog is Fan.
How long have you been with her?
I worked with Fan for 3 years.
Is she or it trained for anything specific?
Can you repeat the question again?
What is it trained for specifically?
Transport. He is the narcotic sniffer dog.
So what does she do?
Fan is narcotic sniffer dog and check the suitcase if contained prohibited substances.
So she cannot identify people.
He also can identify the owner
Okay,
of
thank
the
you.
suspected suitcase.
So did you mention that Myro Tipangwiti joined the line of people waiting for clearance in your testimony?
Yes,
So the travelers were waiting.
can you repeat?
So the travelers were waiting.
When Mr. Tipangwiti waiting
No,
in
I'm
line of
asking for all the travelers.
older travelers,
All of the travelers, they're waiting in line.
Were all the travelers
And-
waiting in line?
when Mr. Tipangwiti waiting for clearance, I approached him
I'm
and asked,
asking for all the travelers, not Mr. Tipangwiti.
Were there other travelers there?
Yes or no?
yes,
So when the travelers disembarked, where there was a bunch of people.
can you repeat the question again?
There was a bunch of people when the travelers were disembarking.
There were other people there?
Yes,
Were people identified by Feng one by one?
the passenger passed by Fan and me, and Fan gave no identifying signals when other passengers passed by.
So they
Only
were identified one by one.
Mr.
Yes
Please
or
stand
no?
by. Harassment. Please just let the witness finish her answer.
Okay, that's make that a form of an objection.
Objection, harassment. Please just let the
Oh,
witness finish
harassment.
her
Okay,
answer.
excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, what do you say? Is that harassment, or why are you trying to go down this avenue, counselor?
I'm just asking a yes or no question. She's just saying something that is irrelevant.
Okay, so I'll let you have a little leeway there. Go ahead and ask the question again. Overruled on the objection. Try to answer the question. If you could repeat it, please.
Were people identified by Feng one by one?
When passenger passed by Fan and me, and I took Fan to the arrival lounge, and the passenger passed by Fan and me. Fan gave no identifying signals when other passengers
So
passed
not one by
by.
one,
Yes,
one by one. When
one
there's
by
a bunch of people.
yes,
Officer
you
Prober,
said-
is it your contention that the dog checked each person individually, correct?
yes.
Go ahead.
So why didn't
continue.
you mention in the testimony? Like Mr. Myro Tipangwiti didn't mention that in their testimony. So that strange thing shouldn't be happening. People didn't notice this strange thing. So okay, so
Okay,
let's get on. So you can't prove
Counselor,
that
did you
Feng-
want to put that in the form of a question?
oh no, I just talking to myself. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
So the suspect suitcase bore a collection chain tag at AA1313. Is that correct?
Can you repeat the question again?
The suspect suitcase bore a collection claim tag AA1313. Is that correct?
I checked the suitcase from the AA 1313.
Okay, the back claim area that you take Fang to was area AA flight 13, is that correct?
Yes,
So why did you go to flights, AA flight 13 arrival lounge, find the owner of the suitcase since the collection claim tag is AA 1313?
I checked the suitcase from AA 1313 airline, and I instructed Fan to the arrival lounge, and it's the AA 1313 is the AA 13.
No, there's a flight. Are you aware of that there's a flight called AA 13?
I cannot understand your question.
Did Mr. Maruti Pawuti depart the flight AA 13?
Yeah, yes,
So the claim tag was written AA 1313.
it's the same.
No, are you aware of that there's a flight called AA 1313 from American Airlines?
Officer Probe, she's
is-
asking you, there are two flights. Are you aware? Two different flights.
It's the same. The AA 1313 is a flight from San Francisco to Australia.
So you
And
can
it's
tell the
Mr.
difference
Diploma
between AA 1313 and AA 513, right? You're unprofessional, right? Because you can tell the difference between these two airlines. You're unprofessional.
Objection, compound question.
Okay, let's go back. Who's asking the question? I didn't know there was a question. I just heard some talking.
So you're not aware that AA 13 and AA 1313 is different airlines, different airplane.
Objection, ask and answer. I believe the witness repeatedly say that the same flight, but the defense counsel just want to mislead.
Okay, just a moment. If you could, I'm going to overrule that because I'd like to actually hear the question myself again. So ask the question clearly and then answer the question clearly. Okay, go ahead.
You are not aware of that AA 13 and AA 1313 are different flights.
The AA 1313 airline and the AA 13 is the same, and is the airplane from San Francisco to Australia.
Okay, thank you.
And in my statement,
Did you taste the white powder in the cosmetic taste?
I just examined the substances, and then I gave detective to analyze and investigate.
So did you taste it
I just examined.
by tasting?
Objection, ask
According
and
to the
answer.
Customs Act 1901, Section 186AA,
Excuse
Subsection-
me, there's an objection on the table. The objection is asked and answered. What do you say about that, defense attorney? Did you ask the
by
same question?
tasting?
Yeah, I think I'll overrule that again because I think she's trying to get some clarification. If you could just say your statement real quickly, let's go ahead and ask the question.
Did you taste the white powder in the cosmetic taste?
Yes or no?
It is the examine way the Customs Act gave me, and I just examined the substances.
Have you ever attended any drug prevention training?
Can you repeat the question again?
Have you ever attended any drug prevention training?
The training courses teach me how to identify the prohibited substances.
Okay, this is yes or no question. Have you attended the training? Yes or no?
Yes,
You said that there wasn't a person named Allison on the airplane seat, but you didn't try to find out who sat beside Mr. Tipangudi. Is that correct?
to investigate is detective duty, and I and I tried to do that, and then
Officer
I
Pro,
gave the
Officer Pro, could you please answer the question? Yes or no? She has a yes or no question.
yes.
So
So-
you did try to investigate who sat next to Mr. Tipanguti.
I try to do so, but
So what
it's
happened?
no one sat next to Mr. Tipanguti.
Okay,
Officer
that's the end
Probe,
of our direct.
I have one question. Officer Probe, are you suggesting now that no one sat on, from San Francisco, no one sat by him the whole airplane flight? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you. You may, cross-examination's done. Do you want to redirect any? Any redirect questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and call your second witness.
Your Honor, permission to redirect.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's what I have.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Pro, can you tell the court how many foil envelope you give to the detective?
I gave detective 5 envelopes
And
in the suspected suitcase that Mr. Tipanguti was carrying.
how much of the envelope you examine?
I examined one of the 5 envelopes, and I gave 5 envelopes to detective.
So if the other four envelope was not opened?
Yes, I just opened one of 5 envelopes.
Okay, no further question. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You want to recross? Her contention was she only, okay, thank you. Go ahead, call your second witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I call Ms. Miles Theory. Please state your name and your occupation.
My name is Miles Leary. I have been an active member of the Australian Federal Police Force for 20 years and a detective with the drug squad for the last 13 years.
How did you come across this case on 13th of August 2019?
At about 3 p.m. on the 13th of August 2019, I got a call from a customs officer, Ms. Thelma Probe. Ms. Probe asked me to go to Adelaide International Airport to investigate a drug-related case.
What happened when you arrived at the airport?
The customs officer, Ms. Probe, and her sniffer dog Fan had discovered a suspected suitcase, which Mr. Tipanguti was carrying.
What was inside the suitcase?
There were 5 envelopes that contained white powdery substances. Ms. Probe handed the 5 envelopes to me.
Who does this suitcase belong to?
The customs officer and her sniffer dog Fan identified Mr. Tipanguti as the sole owner of a suspected suitcase when he was disembarking from the airplane. He was also the only person who went to pick up the suitcase.
And what did Mr. Tipanguti say about the white powder substance in his suitcase?
Mr. Tipanguti did not answer my question directly. He just claimed that this suitcase did not belong to him, just belonged to a woman named Allison. However, we could not locate this person at all. What's more, Mr. Tipanguti could not provide this so-called Allison's basic information or even what she looked like. He was the one carrying the suitcase with the white powdery substance.
And what did you do after you questioned Mr. Tipanguti?
Under the legal procedure, I escorted Mr. Tipanguti to the police station, where he was formally charged.
Aside from the passenger list, what further investigation did you carry out about the person Allison?
Since Mr. Tipanguti claimed that this person, Allison, will go to his house to pick up the suitcase, I put Mr. Tipanguti's house under surveillance for 1 week, but there was no one went to his house to pick up the suitcase.
And what investigation did you do on these 5 envelopes that Ms. Probe gave you?
I took the 5 envelopes that contain white powdery substance to the police laboratory for analysis.
So what was the result of the analysis?
The analysis indicated that the prohibited substances is heroin.
So according to your all investigations, what can you conclude?
Through my investigation, Ellison did not exist. Mr. Tipanwuti is a sole owner. He must know what is inside the suitcase. However, Mr. Tipanwuti carrying the suitcase with the heroin into Australia. This is a clear evidence that Mr. Tipanwuti had intention to import the heroin.
No further question. Thank you, Your Honor.
You may begin your cross-examination.
Okay, thank you. So, did you ask the defendant, my client, to describe Allison's appearance? Miss Larry?
Excuse me, can you speak louder? I could not.
Okay,
listen.
so
I could not listen.
did you ask my client to describe Allison's appearance?
I have asked Mr. Tipanwuti about Allison's appearance, but he said he did not know.
So you are adding new things right now, right? You didn't mention it in your testimony. So are you adding new things right now?
No, because Mr. Tipanwuti said that he did not know. So this evidence is helpful.
But you also mentioned some unhelpful evidence in your testimony. So why didn't you mention this testimony? Can we claim that you are adding new things?
I did not adding those things. I'm
You are
just
adding new things right now. Thank you. So
Objection,
So-
please. Let the defense counsel please stop murmuring. You just want to put word into my witness answer.
Yeah, you need to make sure, also stating that you need to make sure that you ask in the form of a question.
okay.
The question could be, is it your assertion that you're not adding anything now, even though it's changed? You have to put in the form of a question. Continue.
Okay. So next question. Did you check if anyone was sitting next to my client during the fight?
I have checked that, but there was no one sat next to Mr. Tipanwuti.
So you are adding new things right now. Is that correct?
Just as I mentioned, I did not adding the things.
You are hiding evidence to the court. Is that correct?
I did not hiding things to the court.
Okay, thank you. So-
Can I ask a question? Don't count the time. How did you conclude that no one sat by him throughout the whole flight?
The passenger sitting charge is with a passenger list, and there was no one who sat next to Mr. Tipanwuti.
Right, but international flights do not conclude that in every minute of the flight. That's just when they start land. When they take off. So can you say that during the whole flight, no one sat by him? Is that what your assertion is?
There was no one by the name of Ellison on the passenger list.
I understand that, but you're making an assertion. I think that's what the attorney was trying to say. You're making an assertion that no one during that period of 16 hours sat by him. Is that your assertion?
There was no one saw Ellison.
Okay, thank you. Continue, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Did you investigate if anyone named Desiree Duplicitious on AA 1313?
I have investigated the passenger list, and there was no one by the name of Desiree Duplicitous on the passenger list.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm asking for AA 1313, not AA flight 13. So can you answer my question again?
Just the customs officer mentioned, the AA flight 1313 and the AA flight 13 is the same. And there was no one by the name of Ellison or Desiree Duplicitous on the airplane.
Okay, so you are disagreeing that you're unprofessional on this, on telling the difference between AA 1313 and AA flight 13, right?
Objection.
Okay, she made it a
Move on.
form of a question. What's your objection?
Excuse me, Your Honor, you can move on to next question.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I'd asked her to actually answer the question. So if you could repeat that, go ahead, please.
So you are disagreeing about the unprofessionality of you to tell the difference between AA 1313 and AA flight 13. Is that correct?
The AA 13 and the AA 1313 is a plane from San Francisco to the Australia. the Adelaide. And just I mentioned, there was no one by the name of Desiree Felicitas or Allison on the passenger
Okay,
list.
thank you. Okay, thank you. So you didn't find out who Desiree Duposition is. Is that correct?
Yes,
So did you investigate if the key of the luggage is on by Mr. Tipamuti?
can you repeat the question again?
Did you investigate if the key of the luggage is on Mr. Tipamuti?
The
Objection, out of material. That's
No, all she is asking is, did he have the key? Just put it that way. Did he have the key?
Mr. Tipamuti is a sole owner, and he
That was not the question, excuse me. She was trying to ask the question, did Mr. Toyota have the key? Yes or no?
he. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah.
Did you
Go ahead.
did you investigate if the key of the luggage is on Mr. Tipamuti?
Mr. Tipamuti claimed that he did not have a key.
Okay, so thank you. Did you look into the heroin sources?
Excuse me, can you speak louder?
Okay, did you look into the heroin sources?
I have run the analysis about the prohibited substances, and the analysis indicated that the prohibited substances is heroin.
Yes, I'm asking, did you look into the source of the heroin?
Objection,
Source.
out of material. The source is not in the testimony of this court.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
You're technically correct on that, so I'll sustain you. However,
Okay.
what you wanted a question could possibly be, did you ever check to see if there's any alternate source besides Mr. Toad? Is that may what you want to be inside the material? Did you ever check in any other people other than him? Sir, Larry, did you check anybody else other than him as being the person as a prime source?
I have checked Allison and Desiree Duplicitus, and there was no one by the name of Allison or Desiree Duplicitus on the claim.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so did you further investigate the DNA and fingerprint of the female emergee and the custom bag case in the luggage?
objection, out of material. Of course, the DNA research is not included in today's competition material.
Sustain.
Okay,
The question could be, did you perform any other tests on the to see?
okay,
Don't
so
be
did you,
specific.
okay. So did you perform other tests on the luggage?
I have checked the baggage tag on the suspected suitcase, and
Okay, so did you say that you know very well what was in that bag, didn't you? You are telling me lies, are you not? Did you tell this to my client?
Objection, compounds question. There are two questions.
Yeah, and yes, go ahead and make a simple question, please.
No, I'm telling her testimony. That is not a question.
No, I understand. It's coming argumentative too, which you can probably do, but it's hard to pick up. If you could just simplify it, make a simple statement, ask the question again.
Okay, so you say that you say to my client that you know very well what was in that bag, didn't you? You say that, is that correct?
you mean what is in the suspected suitcase that Mr. Tipamuti carrying?
I'm
Yes.
asking, did you tell Mr. Tipamuti this question, this sentence?
Did you say that to Miss when you were interrogating him or when you were talking to him? Did you say that? Yes or no?
I just asked Mr. Tipamuti what was inside the suitcase.
Okay, so
Okay,
was my
time's up. Last question, please.
Okay, so was 1999 the time you became a member of Australian Federal Police?
You
Could you-
mean 1999?
Yes.
I have been the police force for 20 years.
So it's 1990, right? Is that correct?
No,
Okay.
No.
That has to be your last question because the time's up. I'm really
Okay,
sorry.
thank you, Your Honor.
No problem. Okay, that concludes the testimony for the Crown. Now let's call the first witness for defense. Who's going to do the first witness for defense?
We will now call the witness Desiree Ratchett.
Okay, thanks.
So what's your name?
I'm Desiree Ratchett.
What's your address?
I live at Untitled Street, Goodwood, Adelaide.
What's your job?
I'm a matron.
What is the salary of the job per year?
About 100,000 Australian dollars per year.
How did you know Mr.
Objection,
Tiffany?
personal privilege. We
Mr.
can,
Cunningham,
we cannot
hear at all.
Oh, okay, good. Could you put the microphone closer to your mouth, both the attorney and Ms. Ratchet? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Just keep it real close to your mouth because between that and your mask, it's very difficult.
And also, if there are other devices that you are using at the same site, you need to mute those so that the garbling doesn't come back echoing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so how did you know Mr. Tiffany?
Now, we're still getting a bad echo. We need to make sure everybody is mute except for the two people. If y'all are real close together, we need to separate you out just a little bit.
Yes, if you are in the same room, please, stay farther away, get
Yeah,
farther away. Otherwise, within the same room and the devices are turned on, they will complete one another.
yeah, you need to be at least 6 feet apart. Okay. Go ahead, let's try again.
Okay, so how did you know Mr. Tiffany?
Before I took up this position, I had worked with a defendant's mother. As a result, I've been a close friend to Tiffany's family for nearly 30 years.
Why did you bring up Mr. Tiffany? Where are his parents?
I could provide Myra a more stable home environment. His parents couldn't do so. Myra's mother left her family to pursue her dream, and Myra's father liked drinking.
Do you have a close relationship with Myra Tiffany?
Yes, ever since he moved to live with me several years ago.
objection, leading.
Okay, I'll sustain that. Make that more in a form of what was your relationship? Not did you have so you have to get what, if anything, was your relationship? Go ahead.
Okay, so can you describe your relationship with Mr. Tiffany in an adjective?
Yes, I have a close relationship with him. Ever since he moved to live with me several years ago, we love each other so much.
Did you try any way to which way did you try to contact with him when he is in San
Objection,
Francisco?
leading.
No, I'm asking which way,
you should say which, if any way, or what way. You cannot eliminate that. Sustained again, objection. It should just change the grammar just a little bit. You can make it a good question.
And how often did you contact Francisco?
Well, he called me every day. He was so well to share with me what happened to him.
Could you please describe his personality?
Yes, he's a trustworthy, innocent, kind, and careful person. He's always willing to help others and doesn't know how to turn down other people's requirements.
Could you please provide a concrete example?
He's so kind that he become a volunteer in the workplace, which is a nursing home. And he also
Objection out of material.
Okay. What do you say, attorney? Defense attorney. I understand what you're saying. I understand you're claiming it's out of material. What are you saying, defense attorney?
We are asking about his personality.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a little leeway on that. Overruled. Go ahead, continue. If not, let's go to the next question.
Sorry. And he also never turned down his friends' requirements. Sometimes he participated in so many at school just because he didn't know how to turn down others.
So did you think that did Mr. Tipawuti have any financial problems when he was in San Francisco?
Objection leading.
I'm asking any kind of financial problem.
Okay, to help you out just a bit, always use who, what, why, where, or how questions, because everything else is going to be leading. So it just change it to a what, if anything, or something to that effect, and you get by with that. Sustain. Just change up your question, please.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. So, what kind of financial situation was he in San Francisco?
No, he never suffered any
Objection
financial
all
problems.
material.
Well, to play devil's advocate here a second, she might be asking about how did he get the bursary to go there in the first place, or how was that available? So that's actually in the material that he was awarded that. So it's not out of material. So I'll overrule that. I think that's what she was trying to drive at it with her question. Am I correct?
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead, continue your question.
No, I provide monthly allowances to him, and he had a bursary.
Why did you give monthly allowances to Mr. Tipawuti?
I've treated him as though he were my own child, and I was afraid that his life in San Francisco would be awful. To ensure the quality of his life, I provided monthly allowances.
How much did you give him?
I gave him about 1,500 Australian dollars.
Objection out of material.
Now that is going to be out of the material. There's nothing that we have here in front of the court to say how much money was given. You could say she gave money, but just stop it at that. Okay, no specificity. Continue, sustain, continue, strike the question, and jury will disregard it. And go ahead and ask your next question.
Okay, so can you describe the spending habit in an adjective of Mr. Tipawuti?
Objection out of material.
It may go to character, so you would ask, and what did I think at this point the court would like to hear this, because if he is an importer of drugs, he would have a tremendous amount of money. So she's saying that she doesn't really have money, so that's what they're trying to go to character on it. So I'll overrule the question. Go ahead and answer the question, Ms. Ratchet.
Could you please repeat again?
Could you describe his spending habit in adjective?
Frugal.
Ms. Ratchet, as far as you know, and you know your this person very well, did he have a considerable amount of money? If the Crown says that he was this drug dealer and stuff, he would have money. But as far as you know, did he have large sums of money? Did he spend a whole lot of stuff and stuff like that? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Thank you. This is the way chat direct examination.
Okay. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Desiree Ratchet, you appear in this course as a character witness, so you should know Mr. T. Pangwuti very well. Am I right?
Could you please repeat again?
Ms. Desiree Ratchet, you appear in this court as a character witness, so you should know Mr. T. Pangwuti very well. Am I right?
Yes.
Is Mr. T. Pangwuti used to city life well? Ms. Desiree
Could you
Ratchet,
please repeat again?
is Mr. T. Pangwuti used to city life well?
Yeah.
But he still went to San Francisco. Wait.
Yes.
But in your
Could you please
testimony,
ask your question?
Okay, go ahead.
in your testimony, you claimed Mr. T. Pangwuti is not used to city life well. Am I right?
Objection
Counsel.
to material.
Yeah, the objection out of material. What are you trying to say? Because it's terribly out. As you say, he's not used to city life. Is that what you're saying?
In the testimony of the Desiree Ratchet, point 7 line is about, quote, testimony. He is not used to city life in
Okay, city
Desiree
life.
Ratchet's
Okay.
testimony.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's overruled on the objection. Answer the question. Was he used to city life in a big city in the United States? Is he used to that type of life?
No.
Okay, continue.
But he still went to San Francisco. Are you sure you know Mr. T. Pangwuti very well?
Yes. He wanted to learn more about anthropology.
Did you go to San Francisco with Mr. T. Pangwuti?
No.
And how could you know what he had done and whether he did connect to any drug activities or any drug traffickers in San Francisco? How did you know that?
He called me every day, and he seems normal.
He called me every day, but you did not put this in your testimony, right?
Ms. Ratchet, if you're repeating to the court what you heard from him, wouldn't that be hearsay evidence? And therefore be inadmissible? So only thing you can really testify to is character witness. You can't really testify to anything that took place in San Francisco, because at that point on telephone would just be hearsay, correct?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
So Your Honor, move to strike the scene, the character witness claim about contact, because that's a hearsay evidence. Also, it is not in testify. It is not in testimony, and it is also not included in the competition material.
Right, okay. What do you say, attorney? His objection was, since it was hearsay admitted to by Ms. Ratchet, he wants it struck. Do you have any argument against that?
It's his question.
Okay, I have no other ability to do but to strike it because it was agreed to by the witness. So go ahead. That
Thank
part
you,
will be
Honor.
struck. Thank
And
you.
let me confirm one thing again. Is Mr. T. Pangwuti a college student?
Yes.
And he even got the bursary to San Francisco. Am I right?
Yeah.
So did you, in your direct examination, you claimed Mr. Tipangwuti did not know how to refuse people for help, right?
Yes.
He is a university student and got the bursary to San Francisco. How could Mr. Tipangwuti don't have the common sense to refuse people?
Objection, irrelevant evidence.
Objection was what? Go ahead.
Irrelevant evidence.
I don't know if it's irrelevant. It may be, I'll sustain your objection. Let's try to change it up just a little bit. Go ahead, Taiwan. It's a good question, but let's just change it up. Make it more clear for Ms. Ratchet to answer.
So should I move on to the next question?
Yeah, you can, I appreciate, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt, but appreciate, ask a question, but just change the verbiage a little bit if you can. If not, I'll try to help you out. Go ahead.
Have you ever reminded Mr. Tipangwuti that he should not carry luggage, that he does not know what is inside? Have you ever did it?
Have you ever had a conversation with him about picking up somebody else's luggage? Yes or no?
Objection, out of material.
Okay. Continue.
I'm just asking about whether, and because Mr. Tipangwuti picked up the suspected suitcase and the suitcase is unknown. So I want to ask him whether Ms. Desiree Ratchet have do this advice to Mr. Tipangwuti before he came back to Australia.
Counselor, you already struck the information for being hearsay. Let's go down another line of questioning for her because I think it's going to end up in the same way. Just take up your time.
Okay. Ms. Desiree Ratchet, did you go to San Francisco? Did you go to police station to see Mr. Tipangwuti?
Yes.
And did you see whether Mr. Tipangwuti had any head injury?
No, he didn't tell me that.
Okay, so you did not see. No
So,
further question.
Ms.
Thank you.
No,
I have a few questions. So, Ms. Ratchet, one of the things in the packet was that he was injured in the police station. So you're saying that he was not injured at the police station, or you just do not know about it?
I don't know about that.
Okay, so he never told you about his injury, and the first time you heard about it was in court?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to redirect it all, Wu-Ling?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and call your next witness then.
Thank you. We are going to call our witness, Mr. Myro Tipangwuti. What's your name?
My name is Myro Tipangwuti.
Where are you from?
I'm from Adelaide, Australia.
Why did you go to America?
I was awarded a bursary.
For what purpose?
Objection, point of personal privilege, please speak out more clearly. We cannot hear the voice clear.
Yeah, if you could get your microphone again closer to your mouth, I think it would be helpful.
Shall we start again?
Yes, if you don't mind, and we'll grant them some time too. Thank you.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Myro Tipangwuti.
Where are you from?
I am from Adelaide, Australia.
Why did you go to America?
I was awarded a bursary.
For what?
I went on a field trip to observe the social customs of aged Americans in rest homes and to apply various theories of practice to my findings.
How long did you stay in America?
I stayed there for 15 months.
Are you financially secure?
Yes,
Where do you get your monthly allowance?
I was awarded a bursary and Aunt Desiree gave me money every month.
Could this allowance afford your daily expenses in San Francisco?
Yes, of course.
Is there anything on which you spend a lot of money?
No,
Objection, irrelevance, how much the defendants spends is not totally not relevant to the courts.
Well, actually, this almost sounds like a role reversal. I would say that that would be what the defense is trying to do. And the defense is actually trying to help you out by saying he's going to be short on money, which gives you motivation. So I think I would withdraw your objection, because if I rule that way, it actually goes against you. And I'd be very careful on the defense attorney to
Okay,
answer.
thank you, Your Honor. I withdraw.
Because that's not actually helping you out.
Who is Elson you mentioned in your testimony?
she is a woman I met on the airplane. We were flying AA Flight 13 from San Francisco to Adelaide.
Now, Mr. Tripoli, I want to ask a question. The Crown asserts that you didn't sit by anybody. Now, is it your assertion that Miss Allison came and sat by you sometime during the flight? Is that your assertion?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead and ask your question.
No, what?
No, okay. All I was asking was, the Crown has said before that you did not sit by her when you took off. It was not the seating chart. I'm asking, did you come across her sometime during the flight? Yes or no? Okay, just like that. What timekeepers, are you saying they have used up all of their time for direct already?
Sorry, I have a technical problem.
Okay, go ahead. Continue your questioning, please. Continue your questions. Defense
Have you
attorney.
met Miss Allison before you talked with her on the plane?
No, we met for the first time on the plane. She was sitting next to me.
Could you please describe Allison's appearance?
Yes, she is a woman about 20 years of age with fair skin, haggard face, short blonde hair, and glasses. She is much shorter than me.
Did Allison talk to any other passenger apart from you?
I didn't notice her talking to anyone except me.
Did Allison sit by anyone else?
No, I was sitting by the window and Allison was sitting next to me.
What did you talk about with Allison on the plane?
I shared my daily routine with her.
Did you ask Allison about her surname?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Last names are not important in our community.
Why did Allison ask you to bring her luggage?
Because she brought too much luggage, the customs officer would stop her. She had to dash to a deathbed of her mother in an Adelaide rest home.
Why did you help Allison?
Because I like to help people in need.
Did Allison tell you how she would retrieve her bag?
Yes, she asked me for my address and told me to take her back home so that she could go to my residence to take it back.
Did you give Allison any contact?
Objection, leading.
What
what contact did
Sustained, you
Was
have 2 more
Allison-
minutes remaining.
was Allison with you when you dispatched the plane?
Yes,
When did Allison leave you?
after she gave me the bag.
Did the custom officer ask you to open the bag?
Yes, she
Objection,
did.
leading again.
What caused you? What?
Judge, you're muted.
Sustained, go ahead and repeat the, go to the next question.
What did the detective tell you when you were in the investigation?
He called me black.
Is there any other hateful words that Ms. Larry said to you?
He said to me, you know, all your blacks are just alike, cannot tell you apart, and you guys never listen to anything or anybody.
As an identity of Australian Indigenous people, are they often treated unfairly?
Yes,
Could you please provide an example?
that is a little bit hard. Microaggressions existed in my daily life, but they weren't severe enough to let me recall a concrete example.
What is the most how did Ms. Larry ask you about Allison?
Can you say the question?
How did
again?
Ms. Larry ask you about Allison?
He yelled at me and said, "Who the hell is this Allison?"
What is the most impressive physical contact with Ms. Larry?
It must be the torture.
How?
He thumped my head
I'm sorry.
against the table several times.
That has to be
It
last.
really hurts.
Your time is up.
Why didn't
listen-
you?
Your time is up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's not a problem. My computer's acting up a little bit. So go ahead and let's go ahead to cross-examination, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Timothy, you claim that the detective attacked and discriminated against you, didn't you?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have any medical records of injuries that you claim you got when you were in the police station?
no,
Okay. So you framed the detective for discrimination without providing any evidence, like any medical record, yes? Okay, since you cannot answer the question. Next question, do you have the common sense that you should not help a stranger carry the suitcase?
can you repeat it again?
Do you know that you should not help a stranger to take the suitcase?
No, because
So
I
did you mean
just-
that as a college student, you still have no list?
But
you
I
still do not
just
know-
go abroad for 2 times.
So did you mean that as a college student, you do not have the common sense that you should not help a stranger to take the suitcase? Did you mean that?
I just want to help people.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever wondered what was in the suspected suitcase? That's when you help a stranger to take unknown suitcase.
Can you repeat that? Your speed is you're too fast. You
Okay, I
speak
will
too
repeat
fast.
again. Had you ever wondered what was in the suspected suitcase you were holding?
No, I never wondered what
So
is
let me
in the
clarify.
suitcase.
Do you mean that a person, do you mean that you as a college student who undertaking the honor degree of anthropology, you had never wondered what was in the suspected suitcase when you help a stranger to take an unknown suitcase? Yes?
I don't want to
Mr. Timothy, you did not answer the question. You mean that as a college student who undertaking the honor degree with on anthropology, you had never wondered what was in the suspected suitcase when you help a stranger to take an unknown suitcase. Yes.
I don't have the I'm not
Mr.
interested
Tripamuti,
in.
that's a yes/no question.
Could you please answer yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tripamuti, you say when Miss Probe has searching your suitcase, did she tell you what was in the prohibited substance? What is the prohibited substances?
No.
Okay. When Miss Probe were searching your suitcase, you say that in your statement, quote, I did not know anything about drugs, end quote, correct?
Correct.
Okay. No one tell you that is heroin, but you use that drugs, that's word to describe the prohibited substances, correct?
No, I don't know what the substance is.
But you use the drugs, this word in your statement, yes?
No.
Mr. Tripamuti, in your statement in the page 1 and a 0.5, you just admit that you just say that you do not know nothing about drugs. But in this question, you say no. So you were lying at that time, or you are lying now. Your word is not equal to your statement. So you're lying?
No.
Okay, but you cannot explain why your words is different to the statements. You say that when the custom officer was searching your suitcase, you say that, quote, I had nothing to declare, end quote. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. You claim you did not know what was in the suspected suitcase. Am I correct?
Yes.
Then
don't
why
know.
at that time you say I have nothing to declare? At the situation you claim that you did not know what was in the suitcase.
Because I believe Allison's suitcase have nothing to declare.
Okay.
Mr. Tripamuti,
Excuse me, Taiwan, just a second. Then did you conclude that it was drugs in the suitcase? But no one told you about the drugs. How did you reach that conclusion? So what he's asking.
yes.
If no
of
one
course.
told you, how did you reach that conclusion? You had to reach on your own, correct?
What?
Okay, if no one told you there were drugs in there, and then you say anything about the drugs, how did you reach a conclusion that they were drugs if you had no previous knowledge? Is what his question is.
I think they are the same thing.
Go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Tripamuti, did you ask for this so-called Edison's contact information?
No.
So you mean that when you the first met person to take the unknown suitcase, you don't think that you need to ask for that person's contact information, correct?
But she asked me my phone number.
Okay, thank you. Did you give all the information you knew about this so-called Edison to the detective?
Yes.
No, you did not give anything to the detective. Did you give
But-
this so-called Edison's appearance to the detective?
She didn't ask me.
Mr. Tripamuti, the detective truly asked you who is this so-called Edison. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tripamuti, don't you think that you need to give all the information to the detective to help the police about that person?
I do so.
But you did not give appearance to the detective. You claim you give detective this so-called Edison's appearance. Did you write that into your testimony? Okay. Please just
I think
answer.
the
Did you
detective-
write that into your state? Did you write that into your statement?
I think the detective will write that into.
Please
his,
just answer. Did you write the scenes you claim about you give the appearance to the detective? That scene, did you write it into your statement? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, thank you. So there are things you did not write in your statement. Yes. Do you know that the sniffer dog identified you as the sole owner of the suspected suitcase?
Can you repeat the question again?
Do you know the sniffer dog identified you as the sole owner of the suspected suitcase?
I don't know.
Do you know the sniffer dog did not identify the so-called Edison and any other passenger as the owner?
It is disembarked with me.
You were identified as the sole owner by the narcotics sniffer dog. So you should know what was in the suspected suitcase, yes?
No, I don't know.
You claim that the so-called Edison will come to your house to take the suitcase, am I correct?
Yes.
Did you know if any person come to your house to take the suitcase?
I don't know. I was in the.
Okay, I can tell you no one come to your house to take the suitcase. Mr. Timothy, you say that you pick up the suitcase in the airport, aren't you?
Yes.
The custom officer found prohibited substances in 5 foil envelope in the suitcase you are holding, am I correct?
Can you repeat the question?
The custom officer found prohibited substances in 5 foil envelope in the suitcase you were holding, yes?
It was in the suitcase.
You physically possess the suitcase, am I correct?
Yes.
Please just answer. You
Yes.
physically possess the suitcase, which means your hand holding that
He
suitcase.
said yes. He said yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You physically possess the prohibited substances. Do you know what the prohibited substances you possessed is?
No, I don't know.
Then I can tell you that is heroin. You possess, you admit that you possess heroin. No further question. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. You want to redirect?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude the statements for the witnesses. Now we'll go to final arguments or go ahead. Closing statements.
Thank you, Your
Crown
Honor.
first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, this case is about Mr. Timothy possessing and importing narcotic heroin into Australia. We have proven to you in the courts that Mr. Timothy committed his crime.
According to Section 300.2 of Criminal Code Act 1995, possession of something includes having control over the disposition of the thing or receiving or obtaining possession of the thing. Mr. Timothy had admitted that he committed drug possession by physically carrying the suspected suitcase. The narcotics sniffer dog fan identified Mr. Timothy as the sole owner of the suspected suitcase instead of this so-called Allison or any other passengers. It is crystal clear that Mr. Timothy has been found to be the sole owner of the suspected suitcase by the sniffer dog. The customs officer, Ms. Probe, witnessed Mr. Timothy pick up the suspected suitcase. In the suspected suitcase, she found 5 apples contain heroin. Caught on the butts. The defendant still tried to fabricate a so-called Allison to conceal the facts that he possessed and imported heroin into Australia. Ms. Probe always performed her administrative acts under legal procedure. And let me clarify one thing that happened in cross-examination. In San Francisco, American Airlines Flight 13, and in Australia, it's also named American Airlines Flight 13. Combine these two flights, its name indicates on baggage stub is American Airlines Flight 1313, AA 1313. But the defense lawyer kept arguing in this points. Obviously, they misunderstanding about this case. Even they misidentify the flights, whether this flight is true. Ms. Probe's administrative acts of examining do not affect the fact that the substance was analyzed in the laboratory to be heroin, and that Mr. Tipanwuti was possessing and importing heroin into Australia. And Ms. Probe examined the envelopes are this another 1 envelopes, another 4 envelopes she did not open. When the detective Leary came to the airport to investigate this case, Ms. Miles Leary repeatedly asked Mr. Tipanwuti for Allison's vaccine information, but Mr. Tipanwuti only said, "I don't know anything." Mr. Tipanwuti did not even give any description about what this Allison looks like. The defendant claimed this so-called Allison would come to his house to carry luggage, but this so-called Allison did not appear. And as a result, after conducting all the investigations she could, the detective concluded that the so-called Allison does not exist.
Normally, when you ask about a total stranger you first met, you would certainly describe this person thoroughly, especially if you want the police help you to find this person. However, the truth is that Mr. Tipanwuti did not provide any concrete information about the person that he claimed sitting beside him for 17 hours, even the most basic information, the appearance. This hinders the detective investigation. How can they accuse the detective of not fulfilling her duty? It is obviously a false accusation. And the truth is that the defendant did not give any description about what this so-called Edison looked like to the detective. But they just lied on the court saying that did. That's just the defendant just perjuring himself. He lied on the courts. The most probable reason why the defendant was unable to provide this so-called Edison's basic information is that the person does not exist. That is why Mr. Tipanwuti could not give any description to the detective.
Mr. Tipanwuti's testimony in today's court not only proved that he physically possessed the suitcase containing heroin, but also had the intention to import heroin into Australia. It is not likely that the defendant has no common sense and helped a total stranger carry an unknown suitcase. How could he not have suspected that could be inside the suitcase he had never seen before? As a college student, Mr. Tipanwuti would have wondered what was in the suitcase. It is very clear that his story contained paradox and make up claims.
The defendant just admits that as a college student, he did not have a common sense to help a stranger he did not have a common sense to not help a stranger to take the suitcase. That's paradox.
And Ms. Desiree Ratchet had claimed, Mr. Tipanwuti had claimed he was lack of money, and Ms. Desiree Ratchet provide money is enough for Mr. Tipanwuti to go to San Francisco and back. So we conclude that Mr. Tipanwuti had intention possessing heroin because he was short of money.
And besides, Mr. Tipanwuti also admits that he, as a college student who undertaking the honor degree in anthropology, but when he helped a total stranger to take an unknown suitcase, he did not have any wondered what was in the suspected suitcase. That's also paradox. The detective have 13 years of professional experience, unlike the defendants falsely accused. She absolutely did everything under legal procedure. Ms. Leary patiently asked Mr. Tipanwuti question and gave him a chance to explain. However, the defendant did not give information to the detective and falsely accused the detective of discriminating against Mr. Tipanwuti without providing any evidence like injury examination records. It is not only a serious baseless accusation against the detective's personal characteristic, but also another lie the defendant claimed. In this court, Mr. Tipanwuti perjured himself. We cannot let the defendant get away by playing the victim card.
Another skeptical point is that Mr. Tipanwuti with the results of the investigations and the paradoxical behaviors of Mr. Tipawuti, how can we trust this defendant's claim? All the accusations about Detective Leary discriminating against Mr. Tipawuti and not letting him answer are false and baseless. It is crystal clear that Ms. Allison, this so-called Allison, does not exist, and that Mr. Tipawuti is lying to this court. Furthermore, Ms. Desirachet is an appropriate character witness. Everyone knows that the change of environments will have an effect on people's character and personality and behavior. Ms. Ratchet did not go to San Francisco with the defendants, so she can not know or prove the extent of Mr. Tipawuti's change in the character. Besides, Ms. Ratchet could not have known if the defendants came into any contact with drugs or even drug traffickers in San Francisco. And in Ms. Ratchet's testimony today, we had discovered that Ms. Ratchet claimed Mr. Tipawuti is not used to city life, but she refused these points. Ms. Ratchet mentioned that the defendants didn't the city life well. Then why did Mr. Tipawuti change his mind to go to San Francisco? Does Ms. Ratchet really know Mr. Tipawuti well enough? And Ms. Ratchet claimed she contacted with Mr. Tipawuti when he was in San Francisco, but it is not in her testimony. Ms. Ratchet reminded and advised Mr. Tipawuti against carrying strangers' luggage, but Mr. Tipawuti still did so. Apparently, Ms. Ratchet does not know Mr. Tipawuti very well. Ms. Ratchet does not know Mr. Tipawuti well at all. She did not even go to the police station to visit him while he was in custody. All her testimony proves that Ms. Ratchet is not qualified as Mr. Tipawuti's character witness.
According to President Curl versus R97, which is very exactly same as this case, the applicant was convicted on a charge of having heroin imported into Adelaide, Australia, in contravention of the Customs Act heroin. A drug possessing and importing offense includes not only physical elements, but also false elements, such as the intention to import the prohibited drugs. That's what Mr. Tipawuti had the intention.
As a college student, Mr. Tipawuti would certainly know not to carry a strange suitcase. It only takes common sense to know there are risks to what one may be transporting. Mr. Tipawuti is a smart university student undertaking an honor degree in anthropology and awarded a bursary to travel to San Francisco. This was a planned trip to bring heroin back to Australia. He is the owner of the suspected suitcase and he knowingly bring the heroin into Australia.
Your Honor, your ruling today will affect future judge will adjudicate on cases as this case today. If we allow every drug trafficker to make an excuse that his suitcase of drugs belong to some fabricated person and let him escape from his penalty, how can we keep our beloved country, Australia, safe from drug? Mr. Tipawuti illegally imported narcotics into Australia. The prosecution sincerely urge you to find Mr. Tipawuti guilty of violating Criminal Code Act 1995, Part 9.1 of illegally importation of narcotic Act 1992, and sentence the defendant to a penalty of 10 years of imprisonment. That's all for our closing statement. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Closing statement for defense, please.
Your Honor, members of the jury, today you have heard testimony about the insufficiency of evidence to prove that my client is guilty, the lack of motivation for my client to import the prohibited drug, and the professionalism and prosecution's witness. We would like to remind you of some important information that you should consider in the decision. First of all, we contend that my client is not guilty due to the insufficiency of evidence. According to Ms. Leary's testimony, she lacked investigation of Allison, the owner of the suitcase, such as not investigating the Adelaide restaurant, which Allison said she would go, and even mistake the place where Allison would go as Adelaide retirement village. The prosecutors didn't investigate deeper about Ms. Desiree Duplessis, the person who checked in the luggage for AA1313. There was a doubtful point that AA1313 and AA Flight 13 are different airlines, but they didn't investigate it further. Since my client was taking the airline AA13, also she didn't investigate the source of heroin. What's more, they didn't investigate the DNA and fingerprint in the luggage, even though this luggage may have clues about Ms. Desiree, not Ms. Duplessis, Allison, and my client. According to Ms. Probe's testimony, she didn't frisk my client after he said that he didn't own the key. He knew that AA1313 and AA Flight 13 are different airlines. One was the airline that Ms. Duplessis took, and the other one was one that my client and Allison took. And she went to the arrival lounge of AA13 to wait for the owner of the suitcase, even though the suitcase was apparently sent to the wrong place. She didn't know that AA1313 and AA Flight 13 are different airlines, but she surely, and this surely influenced the investigation. We can assume that there's still a lot of doubts in this case, and the evidence is insufficient, which shows that the prosecution didn't fulfill their duty to uncover the truth. Next, my client lacks a motivation to commit the crime. Ms. Richard provides him a stable life by loving him and giving financial help and support to Myro Tipanuti, and he owns a bursary to complete his field trip. He has a full goal lifestyle, which clearly indicates he never was desperately required with large amounts of money in his life or has no motivation to transport prohibited drugs into Australia. Moreover, both Ms. Frobe and Ms. Leary are Malfeasors. Ms. Frobe, a custom officer with 13 years of working experience, tasted the unnamed white substance, but she claimed it was examining, but she didn't use any chemicals way to examine it. And she didn't do any testing to show that it isn't good. She didn't do any test to show that the unknown white substance won't cause harm to her body. So she took a risk of her life and damaged the evidence. Instead of risking my client to find out the key, she chose to force the suitcase open. She couldn't tell why she thought my client was the owner of the suitcase, since there was a bunch of people passing through. Ms. Leary, a detective in the drug squad for more than 13 years of working experience, she showed distinct hate in his words during the investigation. For instance, Ms. Leary called my client black and said, "You know, all you blacks are just alike and cannot tell you apart, and you guys never listen to anything or anybody." And he told this hateful word to my client. She also didn't believe my client, which definitely violated the presumption of innocence just because of my client's identity of Australian Indigenous people. The discriminative action involved with the negative social atmosphere of Indigenous people when Ms. Larry grew up and was trained in 1999, which means that the Australian government apologized to the Indigenous people in after 1999. So Ms. Leary grew up and was trained in a very negative social atmosphere to Indigenous people by then. But this is not the reason to bully others. Ms. Leary was a detective who holds prejudice to Indigenous people, and we assume that she is holding the prejudice to the investigation. Moreover, Ms. Leary even tortured my client, thumping his head against the table several times. My client suffered from verbal and physical abusement from Ms. Leary. All this evidence shows that Ms. Leary is really sees the indigenous people very badly. And in the testimony of Ms. Broke, she said that she didn't mention that nobody said by Mr. Chipangwuti in the testimony, and she couldn't distinguish the flight AA13 to flight AA1313, which are two airlines from the American Airlines. This is a common sense, and as a custom who has worked for more than 13 years, she couldn't even distinguish them. So we believe that Ms. Rube is very unprofessional. Ms. Leary's testimony, she was still murmuring when the defense is asking her about whether she asked Mr. Tipangwuti questions when she investigates. And to our client, helping strangers and helping others is from his heart. He is an enthusiastic man, which Ms. Desiree Richard proved to you. He tried to help Allison those they met the first time. And Ms. Richard called Mr. Tipangwuti every day, and when Mr. Tipangwuti was in San Francisco. This shows that, and we can tell that from the testimony, Mr. Tipangwuti told everything to Ms. Desiree, since she is the only member of her family. So, of course, Mr. Tipangwuti is very relying on Ms. Richard, and when he was at the police, Ms. Richard was very worried, and she went to the police to visit him, as she mentioned in the testimony.
And in the prosecution's closing statement, they mentioned that Myra Tipangwuti is lack of money, but he didn't lack of money since we proved that. He has bursary and monthly allowances from Ms. Ratchet. And we think that Ms. Larry is highly important evidence that Mr. Tipangwuti can describe Allison's appearance. The defense strongly doubt that Ms. Larry is trying to escape her responsibility of not investigating the stipper, since that she didn't mention in her statement and adding less new words into her testimony. Also, my client went to San Francisco because he is awarding an honor degree. As common sense, the prosecution should know that no one will refuse this kind of opportunities. As the prosecution is ignoring Ms. Ratchet's testimony, she mentioned that she went to a police station in cross-examination. The prosecution is misunderstanding Ms. Ratchet, which will surely impact the result of these cases. In conclusion, the evidence that prosecution provides is insufficient. My client was not in possession of the suitcase, and he didn't have the intention to have prohibited drug in his possession. Your Honor. Okay.
And we believe that when there's a bunch of people, the time's up. Your Honor, please find my client Myra Tipangwuti not guilty. Thank you.
Objection, Your Honor. The prosecution here are something want to move to strike. We want to strike about the defense counsel mislead about the parts of claim and also investigation in DNA and also.
Sorry, Your Honor. I think this is obeying.
Objection, Your Honor. We have objection.
Your Honor, you're on mute.
Your Honor, we want to strike
Yeah.
the part.
Yeah, let's go ahead and stop, and then I'll give a conclusion here, because I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this, okay?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
No
Let us
problem. Actually really good. Okay, let me try to add so I could get that there, and you guys can see. Okay, I've not researched. I've made my decision, I guess you would say, during the final statements. Okay, there are some really good aspects of both cases today. I really like to talk about the witnesses. The witnesses are probably going to be the key. I thought that the best witness for both sides was Probe. I really thought her direct testimony was really good. A little bit shaky on the cross-examination, but hers was excellent. Everybody else, we missed a bunch of opportunities in different ways. And in the defense, you're going to have your best witness to be the defendant here. And in this case, I think you spent the majority of your time, or too much time, on Miss Ratchet. So be real careful on that, because especially in your closed statement, you start talking about discrimination, in which was not really effectively proven in your deal, and that's going to be one of your parts of your case. On Wuling, you need to make sure that you add the case law in there. You didn't really add effectively case law. Remember, we're going to go, this case will revolve around intentions. And since you don't really mention the intention, he didn't have any intentions, and he was physically had possession, there's no other decision a court could make here other than to vote for the Crown. So in this particular case, you with a little bit of change, you can make it a lot stronger case. Okay, now attorneys, oh my gosh. Very impressive again, affiliated. I'm not particularly big on the tag team stuff, but your closing statement was spot on, and I thought was very effective. Cross-examination was very good. I think you really got Milo bad, and if you discredit Milo, you pretty much had that. You're able to strike quite a bit of testimony that of Miss Ratchet. So both of those are very good. I think excellent job. Wuling, attorneys, both you guys have marvelous presence, and I think you have really good. I think your cross-examination questions were excellent. I think I'd work a little bit on both the opening and the closing some. The closing part could have been a little more effective, but you actually went point by point, and I think you proved your case really well. I gave you all perfect scores. This was by far the two best I saw attorneys against each other. And like I said, the case as far as ruling goes down to the fact that the Crown proves basically what their case is, that he does have possession. You don't bring up the intention, and you don't bring up the discrimination, the two things on the defense that could mitigate what they have. So you pretty much his decision being there's no other decision. Now, when I add up all the scores for the 3 days, the first team would be affiliated. The second team by half a point would be Wuling. So you guys did, would beat out the Vietnam people. So I thought that was very good. Especially you could consider your attorneys today really helped out your points. So girls, you did a marvelous job, and I really appreciate that. After doing this for many years, this is really heartwarming to see. I work a little bit on the witnesses. For affiliated, I'd work a little bit on Leary, because Leary could have potentially been a very a weak point for you, but it ended up being okay. So I scored it, I think I'm gonna send it to you, 34 and a half, 30 and a half, and 30 over the two days. Okay, Mimi, any questions or anything?
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham, again for getting up very, very early. And
Yeah, it was
for
hard.
ruling, yeah, and listening to the entire session. For us, it's just like a real court, because that's how we are preparing the students. They're like, if this happens to them, they're gonna like go to the court and actually be able to defend themselves, or prosecute the other team. So that's the scale that we are going for. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I thought today you were very successful. Actually, we're going to object to the closing statements. I mean, we got people going back and forth. So that was a real goal. So I really think that all the attorneys here, I would also strike girls from Wuling. They got by with a lot of narratives. They would ask one question and they would repeat quite a bit. So you remember that you need to object to narrative as well. Effectively, if you can object and stop their upset their witnesses or upset their thing, that's the key to winning here. But y'all did a very, very good job.
Yes, and I thank Mr. Cunningham, and as well as Miss Catherine Liao at Wuling High School. Her coaching was marvelous, and also she had another teacher helping them as well. So Wuling has always been our top, most ferocious enemy. So we always know that Wuling is the best in English and everything. And the Vietnam, the students in that school are also very vicious too. So yeah. So yeah,
I was bragging about you guys, all you guys, and we're sending this to a couple of places to show that a lot of times people think that English is not taught properly outside of English-speaking countries. And I keep on telling them that many people speak English better than I do, or better than my students do. And so we can actually utilize this. Here you see people in Taiwan speaking English very, very well, or in Vietnam speaking English very, very well. And it may be the third or fourth language that you speak. So, this is something that hats off to both teachers and coaches. This is a very positive thing.
Yes, and also maybe send the videos to people who are also in this field, like holding mock trial competitions in the States, and maybe they would be interested in watching this, because I actually thought that both teams did extremely well. They are all very well prepared. They know what they're doing. And this is a very highly stressful competition, at least for us anyway. It's very highly stressful.
Let me ask you this question, Mimi. When you take this as a teacher, especially a teacher of English language, how does this help the students learn English better than just a traditional route of teaching?
Well, it helps a lot, because, for example, with the traditional teaching, you teach the grammar, the structure, and how it's laid out. But here it embeds it, a lot of critical thinking is embedded, and a lot of spontaneous response. So you don't get to just memorize the things and then produce what you have memorized. You have to, like, on the spot, you have to catch things, and then you have to take what you are given and then make the best out of it. And all that is in English. So it takes a lot of thinking and a lot of producing that in English, because if you say that if they do it in their mother tongue, of course, it's just, is the critical thinking part. But with the language part, it really is very, very stressful and very, very challenging for especially my students, because I know that Wuling students are top notch in English. I know that the students in Vietnam are top notch in English, because they came to visit our schools like 2 years ago. And they were like, whoa, super, like they can be teachers. The students there can be teachers, English teachers. Yeah, and so we know what we are up against. So these guys are like, we have to put more time into this. Okay, so they've been working, many, many hours on trying to think of what the scenarios could be. Think of different scenarios that the other team could come up with, and try to, be prepared for that. If you're not prepared for most of the things, then you're gonna fail. So with the prepared part plus the the impromptu, the spontaneous part, then you can see that the language produced is of much higher level.
Yeah, I really, like I said, you can almost see that, especially with the attorneys, because it's a lot more prepared than the witnesses. So I was very impressed. I think it's attorneys from Wuling. What have you learned through this by doing this? What have you learned? How was it to learn, doing this in English? Could you give us a little personal? Yeah, go ahead.
Be more careful when preparing our
Put your microphone up to your mouth.
Yeah, it's very
Okay.
difficult to hear.
Just be more careful to prepare the question in direct examination.
Yeah, that's going to be important because you're trying to get a story out. If you can't get the story out, what happens?
They will win.
Yeah, like today, if you were going to look at your time again, would you agree that you should spend more time on Milo and less time on Ratchet?
Because we didn't aware of the leading question at first, so we changed the question.
Actually, we try to avoid them, and then we just changed a lot of questions that we thought that was really leading, and then we left the question that we thought that was not so-called leading question, but we found that it's not the way it works.
Yeah, no, that actually goes to what the teacher and affiliated was talking about, is that you are changing stuff on the spot. A lot of people may not realize that, but that takes a very high level of English skills to do that. So you're thinking and doing it in a different language. I was amazed. I thought you did a really, really good job.
Yeah, that's excellent. For sure, you're gonna win the English proficiency in this.
Yeah. It's one thing, sometimes we just train for tests, and that's one thing about learning, but a lot of times you'll forget that. But this stuff will stay with you for life. So, this is a really good way of doing it. But all four of y'all were very clear. It was easy to understand, a little technical difficulties, but it's easy to understand. And I realized with the mask and everything, it's a little more difficult. But I really appreciate it. I thought this was very neat. This year was a lot better than years in the past, I thought. And the competition, I think, was a lot better too.
Yes, the competitors are very strong, and so we have to grow and try to be stronger. So thank you very much for all these hours of work for the teacher's part as well as the students' part. I'm sure that you will have you'll have this memory for a long time, and it will go a long way to your other learning too.
Yeah, and I will send you the scores in a little bit, and then I'll send you the videos sometime this afternoon when they'll get rendered.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope to have UK in our competition next year. Hopefully they can be prepared. So we'll have more and more schools. I'm trying to invite more schools to participate in this. And mostly because this case, not only because it is about discrimination, also it's easier for students to prepare because the statements are not so long. For other case materials, the statements are quite long, and it might not be very easy for the non-native speakers to prepare if if each witness has 15, 16, 20 pages of statement. If you know what I mean.
Well, it'll be easier probably for the attorneys to prepare for this for sure. Sometimes it's better for the characters to be able to have a little more in-depth information. It could be a little more real, but I don't disagree with you. So I will see you guys later. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.
Bye.